Okay, well, folks can keep joining along, but it's 9:04, and I say we get this show started. Yeah, thank you all for being here. Um, Thank you, and really for joining us for the 13th annual Lifesavers Breakfast. My name is Scott Smith, and my pronouns are he, him, his. I'm the executive director at the Alliance for Suicide Prevention of Larimer County. We prevent suicide in Larimer County through training and education, providing outreach, and offering support. I'm just super excited to see so many members of our community here, see so many friends, see so many close partners, and all of you are here to support the Alliance for Suicide Prevention. This breakfast is about hope, community, collaboration, and coming together to prevent suicide, because that's the only way we can actually prevent suicide, together. And because we are going to talk about suicide and some data around that, it's also important to ground ourselves and realize that suicide impacts so many people, and so many people in this room. We are going to be looking forward and talk about how to prevent suicides. And because of that, it's equally important to pause and hold space for those who have died by suicide. So let's take a moment of silence to center our intentions, to be present, and remember those that have died by suicide. Thank you for that. I think it's always important for everyone, but especially us and myself who do the work, to just ground ourselves and realize that suicide impacts so many people, and that oftentimes, we look at numbers and statistics, and it's important to realize that those are also people's lives. So yeah, thank you for having a moment of silence. Can everyone hear me? Audio good? We're doing good? All right, great. Those of you who know me know that I'm not a morning person, so usually our breakfast is a little bit earlier, but I pleaded to have it start at 9 o'clock. So thanks for that little change. We do have a couple housekeeping items to go through before we start. So namely, this is our second time holding this event virtually. So thank you for being patient around that. I did want to wear my tuxedo today, but I thought it'd be a little over the top for a Zoom meeting. So I'm just wearing our ASP branded apparel, some of which is actually for sale. But because this is virtual, please remain on mute. Feel free to communicate in the chat feature. And I'm really looking forward to having this event meeting in person next year. So let's keep doing what we have to make that happen. I'm an optimistic guy, so I think we'll be able to get there. And I also really want to wear my tuxedo next year. So let's do what we have to do. I just wanted to give everyone a reminder to check out our event website, GiveSmart. You can link to our GiveSmart page from the suicideprevent.org website, or you can go straight to the site. And I think that link's going to be dropped in the chat right now. You can also text Lifesaver 21 to 76278. On that event website, we've got some great silent auction packages to bid on and Alliance for Suicide Prevention branded items for purchase. Bidding for the silent auction ends on Wednesday, September 29th at 6 p.m. That's tomorrow at 6. So we do receive a ton of support from our community, and that really allows us to further our mission and provide free services throughout Larimer County. I would like to recognize the following businesses, organizations, and individuals who have helped with suicide prevention efforts through their generous sponsorship. A big thank you to our leading light sponsors, Summit Stone Health Partners, UC Health, and Roche Constructors, Inc. Our community champion sponsors, Cedar Springs Hospital and Highlands Behavioral Health System, Elevations Credit Union, Peter Velchek Farmers Insurance Agency, and Poudre Valley REA. Our prevention partner sponsors, Canvas Credit Union, FCI Constructors, Otter Cares, and the Women's Clinic of Northern Colorado. And our Alliance ally sponsors, Madwire and Little Man Ice Cream. So thank you all. It's really crucial to get the support like this from the community. So I just really can't thank all the sponsors enough. And also to you in the audience, please consider supporting these businesses whenever you can. They truly make a difference and help keep all of our programming free and help prevent suicide in Larimer County. Additionally, every year we receive incredible support from Joanne Caton, an amazing volunteer who helps gather our silent auction packages, and we really couldn't do it without her. So thank you, Joanne. I also want to thank longtime board member Nikki Lucas, who puts so much time and energy and effort into making this breakfast a success. Thanks, Nikki. All right. Whew. My mouth always gets dry when I'm excited. Really, I kind of want to start with what a tough year and a half it's been. I mean, I actually kind of want to go back a little bit and spend a little time and revisit the last 18 months. And I know that we want to put that behind us, and I do too. In fact, it feels like I blocked a lot of the last year and a half out. A lot of us did. And I think that makes sense. That's how people cope with stress, trauma, and loss. Sometimes we numb, block out, or forget just to survive something. But we also need to lean in, process, or metabolize that stress, trauma, and loss so we can incorporate it in a healthy way. So I'm going to ask you to let me go there with you all just for a bit. If we lean in to the uncomfortable a little, it can become more bearable. And sometimes if we lean in there, we can drop off some of that stress, grief, or loss, and pick up some strength, some healing or gratitude to bring along with us. In many ways, the last 18 months has been horrendous. And I'm not just talking about the COVID-19 pandemic. The last year brought so many things: social unrest, increased hate crimes, an election, the mass shooting in Boulder. The biggest fires our state had ever seen came to our Larimer County backyard. Recently, we experienced flooding as a result of the Cameron Peak fire. And unfortunately, that flooding took several lives. There was enormous stress and pressure put on our healthcare system, frontline workers, medical providers, and first responders. We saw many overdose deaths with less options for treatment and prevention, with increased fentanyl and drug supplies. And we lost community members and loved ones to suicide. Many of us knew someone who died from COVID-19, and all of us had our lives disrupted in profound ways by the pandemic. I actually think this disruption has greatly gone overlooked. I'm hoping that everyone here can help me metabolize the last 18 months, both as individuals, but really as a community. Just like suicide prevention needs to happen as a community, healing is much more powerful and permanent when done as a community. Prior to the pandemic, we had many different roles and hats in our daily lives. And these different roles came with rituals, little boundaries, and that helped provide some structure. And indeed, our brains and society need this structure and ritual to function and to maintain regulation. So if we take a minute to reflect, I think we'll notice how profound this really is. For example, perhaps we are a parent, and pre-pandemic, we spent the morning making sure our kids had what they need to get out the door: breakfast, lunch, backpacks. We might have all done all this in our pajamas before changing into work clothes and leaving our house to go to work. Even if we were not a parent, we all had morning routines. And after leaving the house, perhaps we would stop by the coffee shop, greet the regular smiling face while being handed a familiar beverage. Most of us had a ritual when we got to work: parking the same place, walking our bike up, greeting the same people, logging into some system. And while many of our work days varied, we had regularities with leaving work as well. We might leave at the same time. Maybe we pick up kids, run errands, go to the gym, say hello to our neighbors when we get home, water the garden, whatever it may be. We check in with acquaintances during all of those scenarios. one of the 5 to 10 how's it going moments that sometimes get labeled as surface. When we don't have them, we realize how profound they are. When we got home, many of us were greeted by our partners, our four-legged companions. We'd put our bags down, probably sigh, spend time recounting some details of our day because we were gone for 10 or more hours. Maybe we changed clothes and made food or did some wind down activities. Our days were full of this informal structure, these routines and rituals that provided our brains with consistency, but really safety. All of these roles, rituals, and connections were lost when the pandemic hit. This disintegration of ritual and demarcation of boundaries is something that all of us experience globally. All at once, we were a parent, homeschool teacher, employee, spouse, sibling, student, with no separation. So while there is a big spectrum of loss and trauma, and no doubt that spectrum is represented here, at the very least, we all experienced a loss in our connections and rituals. And I think individually and collectively, one way we got through the last 18 months was by kind of hunkering down, numbing grief, and bottling things up. And I feel like we're starting to see that bottling up force its way out in different forms of stress and even sometimes crisis. There's a lot of hurt in the world right now. By all accounts, youth mental health is being impacted more than ever. And while we are happy to report that Larimer County did see an overall reduction in suicide deaths in 2020 and a reduction in suicide deaths of youth under 18, we have seen the impact of the last 18 months on everyone's mental health. We are seeing a demand for behavioral health treatment that communities are struggling to meet. That doesn't mean that our current situation and future are without hope. We all possess the tools and ability to connect, support, and process the hurt and stress together. Thankfully, that's what we do as humans. And indeed, that is our greatest strength as a species, to connect, to love, to listen, communicate, and overcome difficulties together. But just because healing together and connection is in our nature, doesn't mean that it will not take effort. So I'm going to ask you to help me. Several months ago, it seemed like we tried to move on from a place that we'd never really accepted or dealt with, to a place of freedom, no restrictions, without the pain of the past or previous 15 months. And we weren't ready for that on several levels. If we want to stop feeling something or feel it less, we can't just drop it or move away. We don't just stop feeling. We can numb, but we can't fully stop feeling. We need to fill that void left by that loss or pain if we want to really feel it less. So let's drop some of that stress, that loss, that hardness, and pick up some strength in its place. I do think it is really important to name what we lost, to honor it. In this way, we can sometimes leave the hurt behind and take some lesson and gratitude with us forward. And this is really what I mean when I say metabolize our experiences. So what I want us to do is take a minute and think about what you lost or one way that you suffered during the last 18 months. Just let it come up, as big or as little as it may be. Just sit with that for a brief moment. I'm going to give you a minute just to sit with that and let whatever arises arise. Now, if you're comfortable doing so, I want everyone to put that in the chat. What did people lose? Did you lose a sense of safety, well-being, a relationship, a loved one? Whatever it is, as you type that in the chat, I want you to feel what it is like, see the words leave you and enter the screen as you drop them there. I'm going to read some of these. Control, freedom, security, connection to others and myself, time with family and friends, connection, relationships, 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 autonomy, connections, connection and freedom, graduation ceremony, well-being, spontaneity. Thank you. And if you need to, once you drop that in the chat, or once you thought about that, if you need to shake a little, move a little, let that go, do whatever feels right. But now I also want us to move to what we learned, what we are grateful for, what we picked up, something that we're bringing forward with us. Maybe we learned how resilient we are, individually and collectively. Perhaps just knowing that we can get through hardship. Perhaps we learned that we are more similar than different from our neighbors. Perhaps we were reminded of this when neighborhoods would come together and the sound of pots and pans clanging would carry out in support of healthcare workers. Maybe we realized how our individual mental health is directly connected to our community's mental health. Maybe we are more grateful for the little moments of connecting with family and friends, hugging and touch. So whatever it is, just let that come up for you naturally. So what are you grateful for? What did you learn? What are you picking up? Sit with that for a second. As that starts to arise for you, I want you to visualize picking that up. Feel yourself picking that up in place of some of the things that we lost. And if you're ready and comfortable, again, I want you to put those things in the chat. And as you do, I want you to see the permanence in the words as they appear on the screen. I'm going to read these out loud as well. And I want you to recognize that even if the things that I read out loud aren't yours, you can still relate to them. So resilience, empowerment, strength, more things in my mental health toolbox, my coworkers and my job, appreciation, community, family is so valuable, appreciation of family, faith, receiving love and support from unexpected places, a sense of community, the importance of keeping in touch, embracing the present moment, enjoying the peace and present without the hustle and bustle of constant activity, service to others, learning that acceptance is the answer to all my problems, being intentional about reaching out. So true, and so many themes there, and I think those are things that we all learned together, right? So I think if we move on without dismissing what we lost, but recognizing that we did lose some things and we have grief around that, and we learned a lot and we gained a lot, and we can always put that in its place. The answer is always love. The importance of telling your loved ones you love them. Beautiful. Thank you all for going there with me. I think a lot of us really want to put the last 18 months behind us. And if we really want to do that, we have to have intentional conversations like this. We entered the pandemic together, and in the worst part of it, we really came together. And the best part of humanity shined amidst a truly horrible reality. Honoring healthcare workers, positive messaging, being stronger together, but really coming together as a global community. That's what happened. There was more money donated to charities in the first 4 months of the pandemic than all of 2019. We all made sacrifices, big and small, but all those sacrifices contributed to the benefit of everyone around the world. When people experience trauma, it breaks our connection with others, and that's arguably the greatest negative effect. To truly heal from traumatic events, we have to reconnect with each other. So while I've got a large group of you here today, I want you all to take a pledge to heal together. It was tough and horrible, but we did see that we can make it through hardship. And we also learned some things and found some gratitudes to take along with us. And just like how we talked about our grief and what we lost in the last 18 months, and then brought forward what we learned, I want us to check in with each other in the same way. So when you leave here today, I want you to ask your employees, your colleagues, your neighbors, your family, what they lost, but then also what they gained and what they learned. This will not only reinstate some of the connection that we lost, but hopefully it releases the pressure valve a little bit. And for those of you who lost someone in whatever way, I do see and feel some of that loss alongside you. And however that grief shows up, It is exactly the way it is supposed to be. And if that grief does feel overwhelming, as it can, don't be afraid to lean into that grief just a little bit. And also touch the love that you have for that person that you lost. After all, grief and love, they live in the same house. That's why grief can be so powerful, because of the love behind it. We wouldn't grieve much if we didn't love much. So thank you for helping us to connect with each other and our community. I really appreciate that. Now, I have the pleasure to introduce a guest speaker who transformed her own trauma into gratitude and is now using that to help, heal, and support others in their journey. Siobhan Seymour is a former crimes against persons detective for Fort Collins Police and has a lengthy history of helping individuals who have experienced trauma in their lives and helping them with their healing journey. Siobhan is a certified life, spiritual, and energy coach. She is certified in stress management, the neurophysiology of stress and trauma. She's a Reiki master and a certified trauma specialist. Her passion is helping people heal and empowering others to be the best and strongest version of themselves. She's the mother of 2 beautiful boys and is married to a small business owner who's very active in the Northern Colorado community. And actually, she's joining us from Panama currently, as she just wrapped up leading a retreat down there. So, Siobhan, thank you so much for joining us, and please.
I feel so privileged being here. Thank you so much, Scott, for inviting me to attend and to give me the opportunity to share my story. It's very humbling to know that people are interested in my experience, and I also feel like it's such a gift to be able to share it in a venue where I can help others heal. So thank you. I guess the best place to start is the beginning. So a little bit of background about me. I'm the oldest of 8 children. I was born into an Irish Catholic family, which explains my unusual name. Siobhan is spelled Siobhan, and my maiden name was McTighe. So I've definitely got Irish running through my blood. My dad was an FBI agent, and my grandpa was in the CIA. So I came from a law enforcement background. When I was a kid, I remember my dad practicing dry firing his weapon in our tiny home in Florida. We had a 4-bedroom house, and as I said, there was 8 kids. So our bedrooms kind of looked like barracks. There were 2 sets of bunks in each of the kids' bedrooms, where my sisters would all sleep with me, and my brothers would all sleep in the other room. But yeah, I have this distinct memory of my dad dry firing his gun in our living room at this cornstalk drawing that my mother had drawn, I think in college. And I remember watching him with such admiration, being like, man, I want to be like him. He's so strong. He's courageous. He's kind. He's a person of integrity, and he wants to help others. I want to be like that. I want to be like my dad. So I chased that dream, and that dream to me meant I needed to go into law enforcement. I remember reading books of my dad's when I was 10 years old, of serial killers written by Robert Ressler and John Douglas, like the legends of the FBI, and writing book reports on John Wayne Gacy or Ted Bundy. And I'm sure that my middle school teachers thought I was really weird, but it was who I wanted to be. So eventually I was hired by the Fort Collins Police Department out of college, and I felt like I really reached my full potential. I was put in a position where I could do good in the world and help others, and I really felt like I was meeting my purpose. And my purpose, I believe, was to serve others. And I identified so strongly with that as a police officer. It was everything I was. And if you ask me, my very foundation was built in blue bricks. I was it, and it was me. And my soul was strongly tethered to the profession, and I became narrowly defined by it. I was a cop through and through. And I really don't think that's unusual for any of us, really, to define ourselves by a position or role we play in life. Some of us define ourselves as mothers or wives or husbands, or we're a doctor or a therapist or a sibling. You know, that is who we are. And it makes sense, but in some respects, these external things seem that make up the tapestry of our lives can arguably detract and distract from who we are underneath the roles that we're playing. And for me, the day that I realized that I had misstepped in how I had formulated my identity was a summer, I don't know, middle of the night in around 2005. My partner and I were sitting car to car in a parking lot and chatting in the middle of the night, as you see police officers do sometimes. And I don't remember what we were talking about, but I remember dispatch interrupting the conversation and notifying us that there was a structure fire nearby, maybe a mile or two south of where we were. And I remember looking out my window in the direction of the fire and seeing these flames licking the atmosphere silently on that warm summer night. There was a mother and a child who were trapped inside of the building, and they were begging us to help them. Now, leading up to that day, when I put my badge and gun on, I believed I was Wonder Woman. There was nothing that I couldn't do. I mean, just ask me. I could kick in doors. I could save people. I could be above and beyond what a normal person was capable of. And I believed I was unstoppable and invincible. And on that night in 2005, that idea sort of came crashing down around me in front of a burning building that I was unable to go inside of and save the people who so desperately needed my help. And I have this image burned, for lack of a better word, into my mind of standing outside of the building and holding my flashlight in my hand and looking up and just wishing for someone to come and save these people. Like, where was Wonder Woman? Because it was clear I wasn't her. I felt like a fraud and a kid with a gun and a badge and a disillusioned belief that she could save others. So the mother and the child died in the fire, and a part of me shattered that day. And for many days after that, and I hid my pain and maintained a stiff upper lip. I went to every fire call that I could to convince myself and my peers that I was okay, because the job was me and I was the job, and nothing could go wrong with that. It was who I was. I later dedicated the rest of my career to helping as many children as I could as a crimes against persons detective. The bulk of our work was handling cases involving abused and traumatized children. And I never dealt with my pain. I shoved it away and hid it. But eventually I had my day of reckoning. The mother and child who I'd never processed came and revisited me in a new case. I was assigned to investigate a case involving a young man who was shot in a room with his best friend. And it was unclear who had done the shooting, whether it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound or the friend had shot the victim. The mother in this case was incredibly upset about how the initial investigation was conducted, and it was my task to reinvestigate the case and make sure that everything was done appropriately and the best of our ability as a police department. So as a result of that case, the mother, who's so angry at how the case had been investigated, turned her anger towards me. And it's fine, and people deal with grief differently, but how it I guess resulted for me was this woman who was standing before me became the personified version of the mother who had met me in my nightmares so many times before, angry that I couldn't save her child. So I completed this investigation to the best of my ability to provide this mother with some type of closure. And after the closure of that case, I took a leave of absence. I needed time. The work had gotten so heavy, and that case broke me. I was done, and I needed to figure out how to heal and who I was outside of this job. I was diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, and depression, and I was prescribed medication. And I wanted to figure out a way to heal myself organically. So I began to work on my mental health with the same cases. This became my most important case because my life was literally on the line. There was an afternoon where I was sitting with my son on the porch and holding his hand. And I remember thinking, this is my why. He is my why. My boy that is inside, his brother, these are my whys. I got into a place where I had fantasized about driving to work and being hit by a car so I wouldn't have to go. Just end it. Just end it. But I couldn't because of my why, who was sitting next to me, and the other why, who was inside, and my husband, who I know needs me. So I picked up my pieces, the pieces that I had left, and I started to work hard. How do I get well? What can I do? What control do I have over my mental health? How can I fix this? And 5 key concepts came up for me time and time again: gratitude, connection, changing my diet, moving my body, and using my breath to control and regulate my stress. They became essential to my healing process. And I'm here before you, imperfect, but balanced and whole as a result of incorporating these practices and being mindful about my behaviors. Practicing gratitude taught me that there's so much more than the despair that we're so inclined to look at in the world. There is beauty everywhere if we choose to look for it. As a law enforcement officer, most of my work was looking for what could go wrong or what was negative, who was out there that was hurting each other and who was going to hurt me. But I failed to realize that there are so many things happening that are beautiful in this world. Babies that are being born into good families, relationships that are filled with love and connection, families that are well adjusted, and while they have their struggles, are doing their best to navigate life with an open and loving heart. Those people are out there. And I might not see them every day, but there are far more of them than the seedy sides of humanity that I've been so inclined to focus on. Connection taught me that every time I tell my story, to include today, that there are others out there that know how I felt and know how I feel now. That you're not alone in your struggle. And that even though as a society we tend to bring such a focus and a need to be perfect, that it's in this imperfection that we find the beauty of life, in the struggle. And when we start to share that with other people and live our lives filterless, we realize how much more beautiful they are than this perfect image that we sometimes like to present. My diet changed. I had been drinking too much and really not taking care of myself. And when I created that shift in how I was feeding my body, it had a tremendous impact on my stress and my ability to navigate it. I began moving more intentionally and focusing on my body and how it felt during the movement. And I used my breath as a lever to control how my stress response was working, and learned to slow my breathing down and help manage my panic attacks as a result. I'm hesitant to use the word healed to describe my new state of being. I believe changed is more appropriate. I was able to figure out how to stand again, and I'd taken a mighty blow to my heart and mind, but I came to terms with it and why it happened. I put the pieces of my heart back together, and it doesn't beat the same way it used to. It's stronger, and I'm stronger. I've come to realize that the narrow definitions we frequently label ourselves by — I'm a mom, I'm a CEO, I'm a detective, I'm a doctor, I'm an Olympic athlete — they're not who we are. They're the things we choose to do with our gifts. When I looked at my dad so many years ago in that small home in Florida, practicing drawing his firearm, inspiring at that cornstalk drawing. I told myself I wanted to be like him, strong, kind, courageous, a person of integrity. The FBI was what he did. Strong, kind, courageous, and a man of integrity was who he was. So I ask you, who are you? Who are you underneath the labels and titles? Are you creative? Are you funny? How are you using your gifts? What else are you? Are you artistic? Are you compassionate? Where are you practicing these parts of yourself? Who else are you? And where are you allowing yourself to shine and grow those sides of you? I've said before, and I strongly believe, that we are all like prisms, and we refract where we are shining the light. We are multidimensional and capable of many things, not the singular lives we typically lead, which are sometimes uninspired and dull. We are born to shine. We are born to live big and embrace and explore all of our corners, where our shadows live, and the parts that we're most proud of, all of it. I've come to realize and fall in love with who I am now. I'm no longer Siobhan Seymour, the detective mom and wife. I'm Siobhan Seymour, the compassionate, brave, authentic, adventurous woman who wants to change the world and help heal others. At one point in my life, I chose to use who I am to help victims in the community and worked hard to find them justice. I now choose to use who I am to help others realize their hidden gifts and encourage them to be the best versions of themselves, to not sell themselves short, to take a chance on yourself and everything you are and realize that you are capable of doing so much more than you think you are. You are so much more than the job and the roles you play in life. Be more. Allow yourself to show up, grow, fail, and stand again. Since I've left the police department, I found new roles as a wellness coach, teaching others how stress impacts their lives, their bodies, and their minds. I focus on helping others learn that they have the power to heal themselves from within. I also host wellness retreats in Panama, where I am right now, a place that I have absolutely fallen in love with, and most people have fallen in love with me. It's far removed from the days of wearing a badge and gun. I take chances on myself and allow myself the space to learn and grow. I know I won't be perfect, but I will be better each and every time I try something new. I want to be better and I want to grow. I want to know what I'm capable of, and there's only one way to find out. I have to try. I have to put myself out there, and so do you. I hope you recognize the story of resilience that exists within you and how far you've come. To be sitting here in this chair, listening to this woman tell a story about how she came to be. There's a hero inside of you that is aching to see what they are capable of. Indulge that feeling. See what else you can do. We owe it to ourselves and each other to be the best and brightest versions of ourselves. Become that. Take risks for that. The failures are worth it. You alone have the capability to see what you are capable of, what those talents that live inside your heart can do. Try, reach, fall, stand, try and reach again. Have the audacity to chase your dreams and catch them. Figure out who you are and be that. Be all of it. The world is waiting for you. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to be speaking in front of you this morning and for the beauty and gift that the Alliance for Suicide Prevention gives this county. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Live your best life.
Thank you so much, Siobhan. I know you can't hear it because we're all on separate screens, but everyone's clapping. Yeah, thank you so much. Also, thanks for taking some time out of your day while you're in Panama. So I really appreciate that.
Thanks for letting me be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just really appreciate you sharing your story of transformation. I think that's not only really inspiring, but it gave us all another blueprint of how to transform that trauma into strength through gratitude and self-care. So I hope everyone takes a little bit of that wisdom an experience from your story as well, and can kind of bring that forward with them after this breakfast.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that was incredible. So grateful for Siobhan. I also just want to thank all of our sponsors again. They are all truly making a difference and helping to further our mission. I also want to thank all of our amazing staff, our board of directors, and our volunteers. It really is a team effort. And we certainly could not do any of this alone. And also thank you all. Thank you for all that you are doing, and thank you for supporting us. Everything and every bit of programming that we do is free to the community, which is why we rely on your support. So please consider donating, purchasing some of our gear, and bidding up that silent auction. If you cannot donate or contribute financially, please consider getting trained in suicide prevention for free. We'll share a link in the email in the chat too about how to get trained for free. But get your club, groups, businesses, family, friends, employees trained. I think that's one thing that we can really all do as a community to prevent suicide. You can also always sign up for our free trainings and any other of our programming that we do on our website, suicideprevent.org. Every year we train thousands of community members so they can save lives and help steer people to resources. So please consider doing your part in that as well. So, last year we served more people than we ever have before in 2020. And then in the last 12 months, from the breakfast last year till the breakfast today, we served more people than ever before as well. We've trained over 2,200 adults in suicide prevention from last year till today. So please, let's keep that number going. That's what we can do as a community. And Larimer County did see a decrease in suicides in 2020 compared to 2019. And our work is more important than ever. All of our mental health, but especially the mental health of vulnerable groups, including youth, was greatly impacted by the last 18 months. And while we did see that decrease in suicides overall, we did see an increase in deaths by suicide for young people between the ages of 18 and 24. Further, we are noticing an increased referral rate to mental health professionals in our youth education program. And I think on the one hand, this is actually a good thing because youth are getting the life-saving mental health support they need. And this is still pointing to the fact that we need to support our young people. So I need you all to check in with the young people in your lives. We just gave you a blueprint to do so, not only in talking about what we lost and in talking about what we gained, but also in all the wisdom in Siobhan's story. So I really am imploring you to check in with the young people in your lives. And also let them know that we will continue to get through this. And hear me when I say we will continue to get through this. If I've learned anything in the last 18 months, it's about our collective resiliency, and we can get through almost anything. So I promise you we will get through this. But please check in with the young people in your lives. If you're an educator and want any of our programming in the school where you're at, please reach out to us. You can find that information on our website, suicideprevent.org. Yeah, any programming at all, please reach out to us. Check us out on the website, whatever you can do. So again, please do your part to help us prevent suicide. Donate to the cause, get trained, get your workplace and friends trained. Check in with the people around you, check in with the young people around you, and take care of yourselves and take care of your mental health. Thank you again to our sponsors, the businesses that donated to our silent auction, our staff, our board, our volunteers. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your morning, and thank you so much for attending.